I'm pleased at this point to introduce Ms. Mary Brock, co-owner of the Atlanta Dream NBA franchise, as our commencement speaker. Her Atlanta Dream won Eastern Conference championships in 2010, 11, and 13. Started out as an expansion team, and the Dream has reached the WNBA Finals for 3 years of their first 8 seasons. Mary has a BS Education, summa cum laude, and an MS in Educational Curriculum Development from Miami of Ohio. She serves on the Board of Trustees of Spelman College, the Boards of Directors of the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra and Metro Atlanta Chamber, the Board of Advisors for the Winship Cancer Institute, and the Hugh Spalding Community Board. For many years, she served on the National Board of Directors of Horizons National, a program for underserved youth that focuses on the summer learning achievement gap. Mary and her husband, John F. Brock III, have funded chairs dedicated to cancer research at Georgia Tech and Emory University. They provided the major funding for the John and Mary Brock football practice facility here at Georgia Tech. And Mary endowed a scholarship for women's basketball at Georgia Tech. Mary and John have lived in Atlanta for 9 years and have 3 adult children and 5 grandchildren, many of whom are with us here today. Please join me in welcoming Mary Rockett Brock as our commencement speaker.
Thank you, President Peterson. Welcome, and congratulations, class of 2016. In just a few minutes, you're going to be graduates of the Georgia Institute of Technology, as we've heard and as you believe, one of the premier educational institutes internationally. Seriously, across the world, people are going to know for the rest of your lives that you are a Georgia Tech graduate. When I think of my early days on the Tech campus, though, I really felt that Georgia Tech promoted a community of inclusiveness, a community of the power of possibility. What is the power of possibility? That's something that I'm going to talk a little bit about today, because I feel like that's what Georgia Tech instilled in my husband, John, and me, and I think it's instilled it in you. You will have a degree that shows, as you heard from Stephen, where you worked very hard. You're not afraid of hard work. You know how to approach ideas with rigor and intensity. That's what it takes to graduate from Georgia Tech. And you embrace and are ready to go out in the world. You embrace this power of possibility. So let's hold on to that concept just a minute, this power of possibility, and talk about right now, this moment in time, all of you sitting there with your friends, your fellow graduates, your faculty, your family and loved ones. You are celebrating all the hard work that all of you know about, and that Stephen also mentioned, that has gone into your Georgia Tech degree. There have been high moments, and there have been challenging moments. And some of the victories have been very sweet, like the miracle on Techwood last October, when Georgia Tech blocked a field goal. Someone picked it up, that very special someone, and ran the length of the field in the final minutes of the game, and John and I were there watching and waiting, to score a touchdown and beat the Florida State University. And if we didn't celebrate things like that, I think we would put a Georgia Tech degree into one category. A Georgia Tech degree is so much more than all the hard work, all the things that you have to look forward in the future, and all the things that you did to accomplish it. At this moment, though, you're going to enter the world that has a lot of unpredictability and a lot of challenge. We're in the middle of a crazy presidential contest, a lot of fervor. We're all thinking, where are we going with that? It's very unsettling. You're entering a future where sharing a meal with a friend in a cafe or taking a flight somewhere is tinged with uncertainty and a lurking shadow of worry. That's tough, but it's reality, and I think we have to just look at it that way. And in this moment, there are some out there who doubt your generation. You know that you're considered, and you are, in the generation of millennials. But do you really feel like Georgia Tech graduates are the typical millennials where you think you're entitled, you don't have to work hard, that someone's going to give something to you for nothing? I really don't think that's the Georgia Tech. Lazy, another descriptor of millennials, those words don't even go in the same sentence, lazy and Georgia Tech. Would all of you agree with me? So indulge me for just a minute and let me tell you about my moment in time. You heard a little bit about John and me. I came on this campus in 1969. Yes, that's a long time ago, as a young married couple. And we felt this community of Georgia Tech. We felt like on that day when John graduated in chemical engineering and we were entering a world like you're entering a world, that we were nervous. We knew we had the Georgia Tech community experience behind us. We knew our families cared about us. But the people who believed in us most were us. I don't know if we really knew what we were doing, but we really felt like we had what it took. And complexity is very relative, and I'm sure you hear from a lot of people that their moment in time and way back when it was a simpler time, but I really don't think so. I think there's complexity at all moments in time. We were going into a world that was very divided by the Vietnam War. We were from a very small town in Moss Point, Mississippi, right on the Gulf Coast. We grew up in small town America. John and I still believe that that shaped a lot of our values today. We grew up in a family that stressed values. And I think that's what you've got in your Georgia Tech family, is look at those values that were stressed. Let's talk a little bit about labels. I mentioned the millennials, and we have agreed, I think, that you are not the typical millennials, but because I don't believe in labels. I believe in their power to do harm, and you've got to reject them. If I had believed in the labels that were thrust upon a young woman like I was in my early 20s in 1970 when John graduated, I don't think I would have gone on and finished my undergraduate and graduate degrees, as Dr. Peterson said, at Miami University. I don't believe I would have become the educator, the mother, the community leader, and the business person that I am today. I think a lot of that has to do with your confidence and the way you feel that you were impacted by where you were at a moment in time. And if anyone who calls you millennials don't stand for it, look at the good things about millennials. You're connected, the environment is flat, you're technological, you're collaborative, you're entrepreneurial. Those are the kinds of qualities as millennials that Georgia Tech has left you with. And you chart your own destiny. No one charts it for you. You're here to grab onto an opportunity and say, I can do it, that I'm confident, that I've got this Georgia Tech degree behind me, and I'm going to really value this community. So let's look at this power of possibility that I've talked about at another moment in time. As you sit here, and I feel a really palpable feeling, you feel that you are ready to go out and join that world as a Georgia Tech graduate. You have the leadership skills, and you can do it. Tech students not only succeed once they graduate, they succeed even while they're here at Georgia Tech. I'm sure many of you are very familiar with the Inventure competition, hackathons on campus, and it's kind of amazing to us. And as we went through Campaign Georgia Tech, we heard so many stories, but there are students and student teams who did things like create a toilet that's good for any culture in the world, that can be shipped very efficiently and effectively. That's changing the world already, and that was done by a Georgia Tech team in school at Georgia Tech. There is a technology in Pakistan where young women can be paired with trusted taxi drivers. These are young women who are afraid to go out and get jobs, but this Georgia Tech technology that resulted from a hackathon on your campus made that possible. I could go on and on. There are just endless ones. I know throughout the campaign, Dr. Peterson talked many times about, while we didn't have a really great football season, we discovered water on Mars. That really helps. And it's really true. You all know that we have a statue of Einstein on campus, and a group of Georgia Tech students and faculty helped prove a lot of Einstein theories. And some of you, with a little bit of your quirk of humor, put a sign on that statue that said, "I told you so." We're Georgia Tech. We get it. And that's what I love about your generation. You're really, really ready to go out there and conquer the world in your own way. Okay, let's talk about the power of possibility and how it affected me and my life. My interests have been, if you've read or know anything about me, are education, at-risk children, and empowering young women. Early on, my years as an educator showed me that a combination of nurturing and structure really had a good impact on a young mind. And I hope that carried over as a mother. I have all three of my children here. I like to think they believe that. And I hope it's carrying over to my grandchildren. I have 3 grandchildren here today who I'd love to recognize. John Franklin Brock V, Quinn, you can stand, Everett Mary, and Lily Annis Dixon. And I even have a great niece named after me, Mary Elizabeth. So I think that their parents would say, and maybe some of you get grandparents in the audience and parents too would say, that when you get to that stage in your life, you're a little more about fun than structure. But hopefully it's working. Anyway, welcome to that group. Let's look at reacting to circumstances. Because as you go through life, you can't predict all the things that are going to happen to you. You're going to have to be ready to take that fork in the road and think where that fork is going to take you and how it will take you to the next decision. I never would have expected, even 10 or 15 years ago, that at this point in my life, in my late 50s, entering my 6th decade, that I would be the owner of a WNBA team, the Atlanta Dream. And before I say why that happened, let me tell you a little bit about role models and mentors. I'm sure you hear about that all the time. You're all looking for them, you all want them. Well, my role model and my mentor is my mother, who is also here. And I want to tell you that she was a person who raised 6 children. I'm the oldest. And she was active in our community, a real leader, very successful. But at age 50, because of different circumstances that she had, she decided to enter the workforce. Yes, at age 50. So she entered the workforce in sales. Her first year, she was Rookie of the Year, competing against young people like all of you. She was hired away by the competitive company in our community down in Moss Point, Mississippi, moved to another state to run a similar sales business in that area. I'm so proud of you. Thanks, Mom. When I told her about the dream opportunity, she said, why not? Anyway, welcome to her here today as well. Regarding the Atlanta Dream, I see the great power of possibility that exists in young women. There are opportunities for them to be role models. They're all college graduates. If you're a young woman in today's world, there's actually a professional league to which you can aspire. And the impact of sports on young women is profound. The outcomes are so tested and believable. If you participate in sports at any time in your life, whether you're young or into high school or college, but it can be any time in your life, you're impacted. There are lower teen pregnancies, more likelihood of graduating from college, more likelihood of having good jobs in your 30s. It impacts you for the rest of your life. So I really believe in that. But one thing I stress, and my co-owner, Kelly Leffler, is right there with me, is that we operate the Dream as a business. If we didn't operate it as a business, it wouldn't be sustainable. It is not our philanthropy. It's something that we want to make successful financially, so in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, the Atlanta Dream and the WNBA is still here. So that's something that, I think is important, and I think I'm really lucky to have that opportunity at this time in my life. You'll find out as you go through your lives, different things happen, circumstances change, and you're going to have to make decisions based on what's happening to you at a different point in time. There will be countless times, as I mentioned earlier, where you'll have that fork in the road, and you need to think, what's the power of possibility that would lead me down that road, or what's the power of possibility that would lead me down another one, and then where will that lead? If you look at your boss and you don't like what he or she is doing, then you're probably in the wrong place. You should probably make a change. Most recently, as you heard earlier, my husband and I have been leading Campaign Georgia Tech. So talk about the power of possibility. You heard the numbers, they're profound. We not only reached the dollar number, but all of the things that went into that. We had 100 chairs endowed. In fact, we had 104 over our goal. Scholarships, fellowships. If you look around this campus today and we compare how it is to when we were here 50 years ago, it is unbelievable. And when you're here in 5, 10, 15 years, it will still be different, and a lot of that will be because of you. But what about your impact on this campaign? Unbelievable. The Georgia Tech Student Alumni Association is, and you may not know this, the largest and most successful in the country. There are over 5,000 members. It's the biggest campus organization out there, and the endowment is over $1 million. So you are already ready to give away opportunities to others on the campus because of what you're doing. And when we say this was a campaign of the many, not the few, a lot of that goes into what you did for us. We had gifts that ranged from $5 to $50 million. But believe me, we would not have reached our goal if we hadn't had the $5, $10, and $15 gifts from students. And that's pretty profound. What we learned as we went across, as Dr. Peterson said, the U.S. and the world, there are Georgia Tech graduates out there who really feel passionately about what happened to them when they were in school here. Now, one thing I'll tell you is they look at the graduates today, they look at the entering freshman classes, and some of them say, would I have gotten into Georgia Tech today? And maybe you'll be saying that. Maybe they'll keep getting better and better. But what you can do is say, I will have this degree with me for the rest of my life, and I want to make something of it. So as you embark on this journey, think about what we learned time and time again about a Georgia Tech degree. It has taught you how to grab that power of possibility. It's taught you how to choose to make a difference. Now, we named all of these big things that Georgia Tech graduates do. What's really going to matter are the hundreds and hundreds of little things that you do in your communities, in your families, and in your job. Choose to make a difference. You have to combine this experience with Georgia Tech and what you can do to make a difference in your life. Where will the community of Georgia Tech take you? What do you think you're going to do, like these others who have gone before you? Today, when John and I received our honorary degrees, we did it with a great sense of humility. We feel really lucky to have had our Georgia Tech experience. We feel lucky to have headed Campaign Georgia Tech, and we know that as two kids from Mississippi who didn't start out with very much, when we were sitting in your chairs, we didn't really think that this was going to be the path that we took. So you have no idea what the world has to offer you, but be ready for it and be ready to take it and go with it. I look out today and I see all of you so engaged, so confident. You're young adults ready to go out in the world. And I feel like it's the time when preparation is going to meet purpose. You're prepared. What is the purpose? So be ready for that. If I leave you with one thing, it's to choose to make a difference. Choose to be brilliant. You are brilliant. Choose to go out there and see what your power of possibility is. Choose to be the best Georgia Tech graduate and the carrier of what's good about Georgia Tech forward. Because Georgia Tech has prepared you so well, you need to do your part. Thank you so much. Good luck, Godspeed, and go Jackets.
Thank you, Mary. Thanks to you and John for everything you have done and continue to do for Georgia Tech.